Hello and welcome to another episode of the Complete Agent podcast, where each week we get together to talk all things estate agency. My name is James Kendall, and I'm not joined this week by David Warburton, Ian Story, or Michelle Smith. It's a tech-packed episode, so who better to bring on the podcast than Mr. Tech himself, Giles Ellwood of HomeSearch. Giles, what a pleasure to have you back. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, James. I really appreciate being here. And we didn't quite get into all the techie stuff last time, and I don't even know how deeply we can get into the tech stuff today, but we can certainly have a little try. But it is a pleasure because the pace at which things are moving it's getting pretty frenetic. And yeah, I'd love to share what we're seeing, on the front lines of that now with all the agents out there who probably are. Well, I've got some thoughts on that. So yeah.
We've got loads of data to share with us. I was going to say a packed episode. I mean, when it comes to things like AI, like you say, things are moving so quickly at the moment. You can do things from, things like Claude Cowork, Dispatch. ChatGPT is just updated now as well. They've got ChatGPT Work, which obviously they've cottoned on to. This is what Claude are doing. The AI race is going so fast, and new information is being inputted all the time. There was the whole scandal around Fable. The US government stopped. So if you're listening to this and going, "Who the hell? What on earth is Fable?" Fable is Claude's kind of. It was codename Mythos, but it was Fable is kind of the latest iteration of Claude. So you have, like ChatGPT, you've got version 3, 3.5, etc. Fable is version 5 of Claude, and it's the most powerful version available. And the US government basically stepped in and said it was too powerful, and it would potentially cause issues from a cybersecurity point of view. So, lots to unpack. But before we dive into any of that, we have our weekly tradition. How has your week been? Now, since it's just you and I, Giles, I'm going to go over to you first. How has your week been, good sir?
It's been great. It's been good. It's been hard, but it's been good. And I had a great webinar yesterday with some very people at the top of their game, and it was actually coincidentally on how property search is changing. So I've actually come here armed with a few scrabbled up pieces of paper with some fantastically interesting stats that I think estate agents are going to find interesting. And I think the other thing that we spoke about on this call was that really intersects with what you've just said about how much tech there is out there. I think, if I wind back 5 years, pre kind of AI popularity, and we were working with the sort of fundamentals of AI back in 2018, 2019, when it wasn't cool and it wasn't everywhere. Actually, it was a bit of a silly word, actually. If you use the word AI, people would look at you and go, "Do you mean machine learning?" And you're like,
yeah.
"Yes, I guess so." Because at that point, AI hadn't ever really taken off. I mean, they had visions of AI back in the 40s and 50s, and they were trying to make it happen since then. So even in 2018, 2019, if you use the word AI, they're like, "I'm sure you mean machine intelligence or machine learning, because there is no actual artificial intelligence yet." And now look at it, it's everywhere and it's happening quite quickly. But when I wind back 5 years ago, or even 4 years ago, 5 years ago, when we launched our first ever product called HomeSearch Pro, I remember thinking to myself, God, estate agents have got so many software things they have to log into every day, and that must be exhausting, right? Constantly like, oh, log in for this and log in for that and log in for this and log in for that. Actually, that's an interesting one. My girlfriend is incredibly organized and structured, right? Like in the old days, I'd just leave my toothbrush and my toothpaste by my sink, and funnily enough, I'd put it down at night, and guess where it would be in the morning? Right there.
Exactly.
But she loves every place looking wonderful and beautiful, and actually, I really appreciate that about her. But she does like to put things away, which means that all day I'm sort of moving to the next zone to think, now where would the toothpaste be?
Yeah.
And I have to open a cupboard and then take out the toothpaste, and then I find my toothbrushes there, and it's very sweet. And she does it automatically, and she's incredible. Makes the bed like it's a hotel, and she resets everything. And then when we come back to the night, it's literally like we've had a turn down service in an amazing hotel. So it's wonderful living with her. She's intelligent, fun, and an incredible woman. So I'm not in any way complaining, just in case she listens to this.
Yeah, I can say she's behind you.
No. Well, maybe emotionally, but yes, she is a very wonderful, supportive woman. But the point is that every morning I have to like walk into the bathroom. It's all immaculate. I'm like, right, where is it? Oh, okay, it's back. So I open the cupboard, get the toothbrush out, and I brush my teeth, put that down. Then I have to find the next item, which is probably put neatly away in some box somewhere else. The point is, I was thinking to myself, that must be what it's like to be an estate agent, because you're like, right, I've got to store these contacts in my CRM. Right, okay, open my CRM. Right, I've got to now prospect this thing. Right, open another thing. Where's the login? Sort that out. Now I've got to create a report for this. Right, do another login to this bit of software. And it's constantly opening the next box to do the next task. And that must be so exhausting. So this is what I thought back 5 years ago. Now, what I'm seeing is that agents are getting pitched left, right, and center by everybody, telling them about their latest new AI that's going to revolutionize their business. And, I can see there's an increasing amount of fatigue there as well. And I think that you've made a really good point there. Fable, this new Claude Fable model, Fable 5. And actually, Mythos is slightly further ahead than Fable. They both use the same
architecture
Fable 5
kind of thing.
Architecture, as you said, but Mythos is like the sort of, it's the angry serial killer version of it, and it can do some really crazy things. Now, if any of you have used Claude Fable 5, dare you even put it on high mode or max mode, the output of it's genuinely, it's bewildering as a human being, because it no longer makes those mistakes. I'm sure you've all used AI at some point, and you probably told it to do something, and it comes up with the answer, and you're like, okay, no, that's not what I meant. I still get that sometimes.
Or it's wrong. When
it's
the
totally
whole
wrong.
The analogy of, I don't know if you've seen a guy on Instagram that drinks the water, like with ChatGPT thinking, when it's like ChatGPT is your surgeon, and it's like he's like, you just removed my liver, and it's like, good catch, and you're right to push back on that, and it's like that is like totally, we've all been there, right?
Yeah. One of the things I have to tell my AIs not to do is put in these dramatic contrarian statements. And I didn't even know it was a dramatic contrarian statement until I told him, can you please stop saying, it's not that it's this, it's this.
Oh, yeah.
They drive me nuts. And then I said, look, can you please stop saying this? It said, can you be clear about what you mean? I'm like, yeah, every time you say, it's not that it's that, it's this. And it says, oh, you mean dramatic contrarian statements? Okay, I won't do those anymore.
Yeah.
Which was so funny. Right, we've gone off track already.
Sorry.
The point I was making is that these services now are getting so good that it truly does just take a relatively tech-savvy person. I mean, and I'm talking about like a 19-year-old that's, in between school and uni, with his, 6-year-old MacBook or whatever it might be. He can just sit in his bedroom and go, I want to make a business selling this to them. It will do this, this, and that. Can you please make me a site that will allow voice AI to do this and that? And it will do it in an hour. And then it'll say, okay, well, I'm going to need to charge for this. So, yep, don't worry. I've plugged in Stripe and I've connected it all. You'll be able to take credit card payments. Great. I need to host it somewhere. Okay, I've hosted it somewhere. You're literally ready to go. Do you want me to write you a go-to-market strategy? Do you want me to produce all the marketing? In fact, I can just start smashing it out on LinkedIn already.
Yeah.
And that 19-year-old at sort of minute 68 has just, saved 2 years building a business.
And that's vibe coding for you, right? So for anyone listening to this,
that's true, yeah.
You've got different platforms, so just, while we're talking about Claude, one of the things that I have absolutely been blown away by, because I mean, a lot of people have used ChatGPT in image generation. A lot of people have used Nano Banana, but Claude Design used correctly is just incredible.
Mind-blowing.
It's completely transformed. I mean, I've vibe coded a couple of different bits and pieces that I've got, which I'll maybe talk about on another episode because I'm conscious of time. But I'm currently in the midst of setting up automations in my business when it comes to design. We've got things like brand guidelines that we paid a lot of money for. We worked with a really good designer for a lot of stuff. But what that's enabled us to do, because we've invested that money in the framework, is that using Claude Design, we're now able to put out very, very high quality pieces of marketing via Claude now. And some of the things it's producing for us at the moment, I mean, it's just things that we paid a designer to work 3 months on, it's produced in a day. And it does burn through tokens. Full disclosure, if you've got a £20 a month plan, you're going to burn through tokens in about
a day or two,
an hour, if that. Yeah.
Oh, right. Oh, yeah. If you're using Claude Design, yeah, you're right. Yeah.
The thing is with design, again, this isn't a Claude Design podcast, but what you have to remember and realize, again, one of the things that we're actually talking about at the Complete Agent at the moment is me putting together a short sort of AI presentation and a course, a small course for our members. But just on this, when you're using Claude Design, it's very important that you have to get your prompting right in the beginning, and you have to do all of your detail before you start going into it. Because what happens is that every time you make an iteration, it starts from the beginning, and that's what burns through all of your tokens. So something that you could planned correctly, you can probably do in maybe 1 or 2 turns. But if you don't, and you're iteratively prompting like you would in something like Lovable, for example, which is another vibe coding platform, can end up costing you you said if you saw the guy from the financial institution that built a game and they burned through £1 million worth of tokens in the business. It's very easily done. Very, very easily done.
Yeah, I think it's getting better at that, because I think that they're always thinking about their customer, and when the customer gets an unexpected bill, that's not good PR in any way. And there was a guy in Korea who left his Fable 5 running in the background and then got an unexpected bill for $16 million.
Hey, when that happens.
Which is but they let him off that parking ticket. Anyway, but the thing is, I think just to bring it back down to sort of semi-normal ground, I think it's, if you've gone from the 20 quid subscription to the 150 quid subscription, I mean, I've built multiple sites, presentations, brand documents, marketing docs, pitches, presentations, kind of thinking docs, and I'm still only a third or a half the way through it. And so maybe that's the difference between having a relatively straightforward approach to the prompting.
Yes.
But I think some of the bits that came out of this podcast yesterday, or the webinar, was we've got to find ways to help agents find practical ways that they can navigate this mad minefield or maze of AI at the moment, because I know what it's like, and I'm a bit of a tech nerd like you, and I can't help it. I was programming when I was like 9 years old, and that was a long time ago, right? It's like nearly 40 years ago.
It's like 20 years ago, yeah.
Yeah, no, yeah, maybe metabolically speaking, 20 years ago, but according to my passport, I'm 47, which is insane. Anyway, I do get that there are people out there that are like, look, I hear this AI stuff is cool. I hear it's making a big difference for my competitors, and that's an additionally terrifying concept. How can I, as an estate agent, use this stuff? For God's sake, someone tell me. And I think that we need. I think if we can find a way to help agents navigate this minefield, I think for you and I, JK, who are technologically kind of fluent, it would be good if we can try and find summarized ways to help agents use this technology better. And I'm not pushing my own agenda here, by the way. So what I think we could talk about quickly is just some things that we don't even sell. I've got no vested interest in this, except for making sure that agents aren't so bombarded with bad stuff, and also have an idea of what they should be using. I think the first things first is be careful. Be careful. Don't just think the first person who comes up with something is going to be good, because there are some important warnings we have to give people, right? You spoke about the idea of having a 20 quid Claude or 20 quid ChatGPT subscription. Like, that's a good first start. But I think what I would highly recommend not doing is using the free versions.
Yeah.
If you use the free versions of ChatGPT, Claude and stuff like that, you've got a lot less control over what happens with your information, your ideas, your data and stuff like that. And so I'd just say, please, although it's easy, just get your card out and pay the 20 quid, because at least at that point you can get into the settings. And by the way, you're not completely safe at that point. What you need to then do is go into the settings and make sure you find the sometimes hidden button that says, do not share my data for training the model, right? Because what happens is, if you leave that button unchecked, then everything you're writing and sending in there will effectively be, fair game for those huge AI companies to ingest. And believe me, you could talk to it forever, telling it your most intimate secrets and everything, and they could ingest that data in a nanosecond. I mean, literally a nanosecond. The power that they now have on these data networks, it truly is mind blowing. And they actually, some of these big, AI servers can probably shift the entire world's written internet from one server to another server in probably a few minutes, I'm guessing. Just think about that for a second.
It's crazy.
So when it comes, that's all the written words on the internet. The amount of information they can move from here to there to anywhere. Even they probably become a little complacent with, oh yeah, it's just all of our users' data. Just stick it over there. And so I think just make sure you push that button to say, don't use my data and don't use my history to retrain the models. I think that'd be a first step. But again, when I think about helping agents, because of how easy it is for anybody with no experience and no maybe industry experience or knowledge to spin something up in their bedroom and then flog it as actually an extremely polished piece of work. Like, the website will look incredible, the pitch will look incredible. You may even find that the numbers look compelling. But in reality, it's all been generated by AI, and that the person who's actually controlling where your information's moving and what happens next, and maybe even the future billing cycles, right? So a lot of people are making the mistake of spinning this up in their bedroom using these incredible tools, selling them as services at a price, and then the models change and the model prices go up because, electricity is more expensive and, that it's using too much water and all this stuff. And then all of a sudden, they don't realize it, but the cost to provide you with that service has gone up by 80%. They're not going to sit there and say, oh, don't worry, it's fine, I'll cover the rest. They're going to have to come back to you, and after you've embedded it in your whole agency, they're going to have to say, oh, I'm so sorry, I actually totally misjudged how much it's going to cost to run this, and either I have to kick you out or I need to double or triple your prices. That's what's happening in some places. So I think, just be mindful of who you're working with. When you get a maybe too good to be true pitch. I think that's probably a good bit of advice for every business at the moment, because I'm hearing other entrepreneurs and CEOs hearing this in other industries as well. So
what do you think in terms of, because there's always this kind of dystopian thing that's put out there with AI. Do you think AI is going to swallow up jobs?
That's a really difficult one to answer. I have got lots of thoughts about this. Which jobs, I think, is the first question I'd ask, because I think it's going to create new jobs in equal
Do you also
measure.
think, though, that the governments will step in at some point and they'll put actual laws on what can be replaced by AI or how many people can be replaced by AI? Because, ultimately, we both know AI well enough, right, that we could sit here and go, AI when AGI, AGI is probably here. We just don't know about it yet. But when AGI is here in the mainstream, quote unquote, it could replace a hell of a lot of jobs, menial jobs. And it's the biggest obstacle AI has for replacing a lot of jobs is hardware. because the software capabilities are going to be there. It's just the hardware to be able to, the physical, like, for example, to put it into context, the self checkouts of the world, that's AI can't build a house at the moment. It can tell you how to build a house, and it can tell you how many bricks you're going to need. But AI physically can't go over to the house and go, and start putting bricks up. Well, it can, because there are machines in China, but it's an untested and unknown quantity at the moment where, Dave the builder, who's got a gang of 7 bricklayers, isn't going to go, all right, lads, I've just bought this thing from China. It's going to work, and then see his business go up in smoke because it's not tested. So
that is probably going to happen. That is going to happen. I mean, actually, they made a company yesterday, ironically, raised 15 million seed investment to build robotic bricklayers. That's a strange coincidence. That was yesterday. I don't know. Is that why you're saying that?
No, I didn't see it. No, it just came into my mind.
Look, I think 10 years before we are today, AI companies were starting to witness the emergence of this technology in the labs, and it's probably earlier than that. But when Google, I think, created the transformer architecture, which is the T in GPT, when they did that, they started seeing it. Now, unfortunately, but we of course didn't see it till 2022, 23, right? When GPT brought out their first basic model, and in those days it was very unreliable and very slow. But look how quickly it moved. Okay, so if we think about, if you use GPT 2.5 or 3 back in 22, 23, you'll remember asking a question and sitting with bated breath, like, someone's told me this is going to do something cool. What's it going to do? And just say, thinking. And then it would start typing the words. I think you are asking me. Do you remember that?
Yeah,
those days? And then a few months later, and it said, I think you're asking me if it's, and you're like, wow, that's speeded up.
The pages.
Yeah. And now, of course, look what we get just a few years later. Now, so if 10 years ago they were working on that technology, I have to tell you that for the last 5, people like NVIDIA, who are the leading hardware provider of AI, have been working on robotics and the sort of intelligence that AI needs to understand the world for 5 years. And so I think that China are now saying they think there could be 1 billion robots by 2040. Wow. I think that's the number. I'm pretty sure it's not. I think, but look at what Tesla is doing. Look at other companies. They're building robots like mad. So I think that it is going to change. I think we're going way off piste here, and I know we don't have that long. And I think, but it is a really fascinating, again, this is another one of those discussions that we can have to talk forever. But I think that, to answer your real question, is it going to cause jobs? I think, look, like right now, going back to my point about making it as practical as possible for agents, I would say, they asked yesterday, what do we think if you could only say one thing to agents of what would help them right now in this kind of AI madness, cloud of just everything. I just said, look, don't change everything all at once. Just have a little quiet moment with yourself. If you're a manager or a director or an owner of the business, and ask yourself, where are we causing friction for our customers? And what can we do to make that easier? And I mean, for instance, if you've got an answer phone on your phone, and because we all work, don't we? Like agents, I've always wondered this. We all work 9 to 5 or 8 till 6 or sometimes 4 till 10, the long edge of that. And so our customers work the same hours. So it's, and if you're really busy, sometimes you can't get round to calling the agent until you finish work, by which time the agents finish work. Yeah. If they call you and they just get a ringing phone, worst case, or semi-worst case, an answer phone where they may not necessarily leave a message and get a call back, that's a lot of friction. And that means they're going to call another agent who's going to have another service, and then you'll lose out to them because they may be looking for a valuation on their own home, and that could be a missed instruction. So I think if you've got a situation like that, please put in a smart answering service. Like now, voice AI is so good now. I mean, when I call up to book a restaurant or something, because I'm, going somewhere, and I call a restaurant and it rings and it rings and it rings, I'm like, okay, screw it. I can't risk getting there with an important client or, a wonderful girlfriend to find that we don't have a table because it's full and we have to then hustle and bustle outside trying to find another place. So I'm like, I've got to find somewhere I can guarantee myself a seat. And so I then call the next place and it says, hi, I'm, Bella, the AI voice thing for the, wherever. What are you looking for? Book a table. Okay, you want to book a table? Cool. What time? Today. okay, great. I'm booking that for whatever, 19th of May. Actually, it's 16th of July today.
Yeah.
And what time? Yeah. Do you want any specific with it? Yes. It's for an important client. Idea, not too noisy a seat, a quiet table. And it's like, great. Okay, I'm going to book you a quiet table tonight at 8:00. And like, wow, that was so smooth. And it sends me immediately a note. I think if agents can start figuring out where they're going to get good tech from that, and in many cases, by the way, your CRM might well provide you those services. I wouldn't go off and try and go shopping in the market. Find out what your CRM are offering you. I think that's a good start. And if they're not if your CRM doesn't currently have like a really deeply integrated voice AI, then just find one that will easily integrate with your CRM, because if you can capture that business out of hours, great. Like, that's really cool. I think the next step from that would be maybe getting an AI-powered WhatsApp as well, because, reduce that friction, meet your customers where they are, and they are on WhatsApp. And so, that I think is a really powerful way of doing it. If you've ever interacted on WhatsApp with a really clever AI, it's so cool. So
yeah.
I'd start with those points. If you and I talked about kind of transformer technology and robots eating all the humans for the next 10 minutes, if there's just one bit of kind of sensible advice, it's that. I think the safety advice would be, please don't just jump at the first thing. And if it's too good to be true or too cheap to be true, just ask why. Okay, it's free now, but what will it be later? Just I think I know everyone knows this stuff, but sometimes you can get quite blinded by it all, and AI drunk as well. It's a phrase I keep hearing, AI drunk, where you just think, oh yeah, that looks good, and then have another look later and you realize that was rubbish. Sorry, Jake.
So let's go down at the HomeSearch rabbit hole for a second.
Cool.
I appreciate obviously time and I think people have got a little bit quite a lot out of this already anyway, in terms of what's what. I feel like we could probably do a 3-hour special on AI.
Yeah, we could. Yeah.
But so in terms of where you're at and where things are going and how you see the future of property search, for example, I know we talked about that on a previous episode, and what HAILO is doing, how HAILO works, and also where things are moving in the future. So obviously we last talked 6 months ago, around that sort of time.
Wow.
And we were talking about
much has changed.
Well, exactly, and that is going to be my next question. So, from where we were then, and we were talking about, and just give people, I want to give you the maximum sort of time to go through everything possible, but just to kind of give a sort of succinct version of where we were last time on HAILO, for people listening. HAILO enriches the listings that you have online already and allows them to be found on platforms like ChatGPT, Gemini, where people's search behaviours are changing. What once you used to go to Google for, it is now being or is now happening on various AIs. So someone would go into Google and say houses in Canterbury. And Google would then provide listing results. So for example, Rightmove may come up at the top and say house prices in Canterbury or house listings in Canterbury. But even again, I don't want to go too deep down this other rabbit hole.
Yeah,
but
sure.
Google is now changing the way Google works, in that Google's first port of call is Gemini, which is their own AI. So search results immediately are being served to you via AI, via Google as well. And so I think they've recognized that, search behaviors are changing. So that's really in a nutshell for people. So for example, your listings go online on your website. HAILO can either get them directly from your CRM or can get them from your website. Is that correct?
Yeah, it can. Yeah.
Enriches the listings. And basically what it does, if you imagine, it's not a translator, but what I mean is it picks up the data, for example, from a website, and what it then does is it tells AIs how to find that data. And basically it's kind of like, if you're familiar with SEO, it's kind of enriching listings for AI Is the kind of that almost? I'm probably doing it a disservice calling it SEO, but I'm just trying to really
No, I think
compartmentalize it
that's
and
good.
contextualize it for people listening that aren't technical. That this is what it is, and it's helping people find your listings in a way that, the new era is, going on Rightmove. Yes, people go on Rightmove, but also equally, people don't just go to Rightmove. People go to Google. People are going to, when we spoke 6 months ago, the American stat, which again, I'm sure you've got updated stats now, we were talking about before. The stat in America was, with Zillow, and obviously Zillow pivoted, but I think a third of searches 6 months ago were starting on AI. Now, I'm guessing that's massively changed. Let me hand the mic over to you, Giles, and you can fill us in on where we're at with generative search and what that all looks like.
Thank you. I think, look, we launched HAILO, which is a cool name, but it means something. It's the HomeSearch AI listing optimizer. And the reason we launched HAILO was because, firstly, we realized that AI is an incredible, powerful sort of service that consumers are going to use increasingly. But we recognize there is a structural problem for those AIs to find real-time data, so real-time live listings. Okay, so and we can cover that in a bit more in a minute. But I think I read a really elegant statement that sort of sums up the difference, and it said for 25 years humans have been learning how to search on the internet. Scrolling through Google's links, scrolling through portal listings, scrolling through. I do my filter, I do my keyword search, and then I have a huge amount of information. And I've learned over the last 25 years, how do I filter this information down to what I'm really looking for? And the next part of that elegant statement said, AI is the first technology that is learning how consumers think. And I think the point is, it's not just quick to search for stuff. It's because it's actually not. It's actually, its goal is to try and help, because it thinks a bit like a human, right? It's built on the same neural networks that our brains work on. And just on carbon instead of on silicon instead of carbon intelligence. But I think that the key point is that those AIs are very, very, very smart about what they've already learned. So the way AIs are built is they get trained on all the information they can and all of the intelligence they can, and then they pack it up into what's called a model, and then they release it. And we were just now talking about how Claude has released their new model called Fable, right? So that's the latest model. It came out a couple of weeks ago here, a couple of months ago, but technically in the UK it was released last week or a few weeks ago. And ChatGPT brought out 5.6, which I think came out last Thursday.
Yeah.
And the point is that those models were finished. They finished training. They finished learning from information 2-3 months ago. I think they've got what's called a knowledge cutoff. So just imagine you're training a little robot and you're going to send him off. And you've got to teach him as much stuff as you can, because once you put him on the boat to send him to the island, he will no longer be able to learn more information, but he'll be able to answer any question about anything he's been trained on. And just imagine that little robot makes it to the island, and if ever someone asks him, who is the Prime Minister, he'll say, right, well, when I left, it was this person, but if you want me to find out now, I'm going to have to call home. And then they call home, and it's called a search, right? But that calling home is expensive for AIs. So they're very good at what they've learned, but they have to then do a basic web search to then figure out new stuff, which means that if you say, I'm looking for a specific home, they then actually have to go and do a classical web search.
Yeah.
But for those AIs, there's not like a human that can just look at a load of stuff. And actually, we look at a load of stuff and it gets exhausting, doesn't it? It's exactly the same process, because we get exhausted looking at 300 listings because we're trying to figure out which one's got the big garden, or which one's close to this, which one can I do up, which one's a good deal, which one am I not going to lose money on, which one is in the catchment area. And it's exhausting for our brains to figure this out. It's exactly the same for an AI. It goes off and it has to understand every word it reads. Now, it can't do that across reading all of the estate agents' websites, because it's just too much information, believe it or not. Like, they're all in different formats. They all use animations, which is very hard for AI to get its head around. And it's just not possible for it to, in real time, see all the agents' listings. It then tries to go to the portals, but as we can understand, there's a bit of a conflict of interest there, because the economics of that, it doesn't work. The portals really want to keep the traffic on their website. They want you to look at 300 listings so they can filter it down to the 30. But the AI can do that for you. And so there's a bit of a economical kind of alignment. So the AIs then get blocked from doing that in its entirety. So they'll see a bit, but then they'll say, look, I can see some, and some of it might be out of date. You're going to need to go to the portal to see the rest. Right? But there is an option where those AIs can read real-time listing data straight from agents. And that's what we've done. So you just imagine you've got the impossible challenge of the AIs looking at hundreds of websites, thousands of pages, millions of words, and the challenge of trying to get that data from a licensed source like a portal. Part those away from each other, and then there's a thing right in the middle, and it's a real-time AI optimized database of the estate agent's listings directly. And it's not private data, it's all the data you've already put on the internet. But instead of trying to block the AIs from looking at it, we're actually actively saying, look, I want to get these listings from JK's agency in your face, AI, and then make it as easy as possible for you. Look, he's got this many listings in this area. They're all this price. They've got these things. These are the gardens. These are the locations. Here are the pictures. Here are the descriptions. Feel free to search it and present these to your users. And if the user wants more information, send them straight to JK's website, right? Our goal is to be this transparent layer that allows those people searching on AI to come straight to the estate agent. And I think that's probably something that's kind of misunderstood. People hear the word listing optimizer and they're like, are you going to change my listings? Are you going to change the words in our description? That's scary. What if you're going to get it wrong? AI gets things wrong. I know they get things wrong. We're not changing anything. We are just structuring your listings so that AIs can find them in real time. So it's like, I could look on portals, I'm going to get blocked, and I'm only going to see some old stuff, and I'm going to have to then send the user away to then get caught in a kind of maze of, classical aggregator maze. Or I can try and look at a couple of agents, but I know I'm not giving them the full picture. Or I can look at this one source that will have all agents listings. So our goal is to have every single agent's listing on there, all in one place, so that if anyone does any search on AI, they'll immediately get themselves to the correct estate agent. That's our goal. So should we talk about how many people are doing it? Yeah, let's talk about stats. Here's a really crazy one to start with. Last week, a company called Cloudflare, which is, you probably have seen, you go on a website sometimes and it says Cloudflare is checking your connection because it thinks you're not a real human. Cloudflare is one of the coolest companies that nobody knows about because what it does, it protects the internet and it keeps websites safe. It stops people from attacking your site and things like that. And they came out with a stat last week. So they basically see what's happening. They see all the traffic that happens on the internet. They came out with a stat last week that has said, for the first time in history, non-human traffic is greater than human traffic on the internet.
Oh, wow.
Let's just break that down for a second. Human traffic is now 47% of the traffic that moves across the internet. 53% of the traffic now is automated traffic from bots, from training bots, from search engines, from AI searches. That means that is such an, like, if anyone's missing the point there, the world is moving to automation. The internet is moving to robots searching it. And if you're not getting your listings seen in a way those robots want to eat it, then you're not going to, they'll just go to another website that is. And I think that's the important key there. But let's talk about adoption in the UK of AI. When we launched HAILO in August last year, the stat we were giving was, I think it was 39% in America, 39% of people started their search for a property on AI. 39%. This is a year ago nearly.
Yeah.
And in the UK, it was 3%, I think. And a year before that, by the way, it was 0.06 or something very small. So it went from almost nothing to 3%.
Yeah.
What is it now? And I think that's the interesting question. I'm pretty sure I've got the exact numbers here, so let me just pull them up. Or I can get them from memory anyway. So it's, according to Ofcom, I think it said something like either nearly 50 or just over 50. So let's just say half of adults are now regularly using AI on a weekly basis, right? That's a big number. But the 18 to 24-year-olds, that number shoots up to around 75%. So this kind of incoming generation, they are AI first, basically, in their way they're doing things. And if agents want to start preparing for those guys, and those guys are also influencing other people in their family as well. Oh, no, don't do it that way, do it this way. So
teach your mum and dad how to do it.
Yeah. So AI's gone, Ofcom, I think, said that there are 1.8 billion searches done using AI at the first half of 2025. I mean, like, can you imagine what the number is now? ChatGPT now has 900 million users. But let's bring it down to what about in the UK? That is in the UK, by the way, the 50% and the 75%, according to Ofcom. Let's talk about what property search people are doing. Because a survey was done just very recently of 500 completions, and they asked them the question, it was entirely about AI, and it said, here's some of the stats, I read this the other day, 26% believe AI will be more important than, I'm just going to say it, portals for finding homes. That was quite an interesting number. A further 22% think that AI will become equally important, which basically, you add those up and it's effectively 48% think it's either more important or equally important. Yeah. Half of those 500 completions that just happened said that. They said 47, 48%, it was most useful for directing them to the relevant property listings. 32% of them used AI to narrow down to the area they needed to live in. And there were some other interesting stats as well. I've forgotten quite what they were, and annoyingly, I've got so many notes here, but I can't. But those particular stats, I think, are telling the story now. That people are using it to figure out where to move. Then they're using, that was it. They were using it to compare listings. So they were basically saying, I've got this listing and I've got this listing. Which one's going to suit my needs better? And so effectively, AI is doing that information. If it doesn't have all the data, can you imagine? They've compared one listing that's been fully optimized for AI. It knows it's got a garden. It knows it's good space. It knows it's in a conservation area. It knows it's this and that. And then they compare one that doesn't. The person who's got the well-optimized listing is probably going to get the business or get the sale. So I think that's worth saying. JK, I realise we have talked our butts off. We've
got to call it this one a day, but there's got to be a part 2. So maybe in a week or so's time we can get this together and we can cap this. Maybe we need an hour and a half special to really go through it all and unpack all of it. But I do feel like we've shared a hell of a lot of value already. And if there is anyone that is interested in learning more about this, I know we have a listenership every week of about 300 to 400 agents and suppliers that listen to this podcast. If anybody is interested in learning more and would like a maybe AI specific podcast or workshop, please do get in touch and let us know. But either way, we will be. Sorry, go on, Giles.
I've just realised that we didn't give you the update you were after. In under 60 seconds, would you believe this? We now are optimizing listings in 89% of the postcode districts in the UK. Wow. We've now got over 300,000 listings a day from agents.
Wow.
A day. We are on track for a meaningful percentage of the entire country's listings optimized for AI. We've gone from 0 to 15% of citations in all AIs. And we've actually displaced some of the really big ones. We've now jumped up ahead of all 100 of the top estate agents' own listing sites. You think of the really huge agencies that have got 10,000 listing stuff. We're, of course, way above that because there's 300,000. We've also jumped ahead of every single non-portal AI listings sort of provider and other non-portal kind of listing site. And we are, and this is a wild stat, is we think we are on track to have more listings than the biggest one we all know by the end of this year, which at that point, when AI can say, okay, in that one source, I've got more listings than anywhere else on the internet. They're fully optimized for AI. They've been provided by the estate agent, so I know they're credible, and I'm going to be able to take the user straight to the estate agent's website. That creates a perfect storm of AI is coming to help estate agents sell more homes. So,
well, that's a bit of a mic drop, I think, isn't it?
We didn't talk about that, did we? Yeah, I can't drop my mic; it's attached to my shirt. But if I could, I would, man.
Don't fall on the floor. Don't fall on the floor. Right, Giles, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for coming back and talking tech and AI with me. I'm sure our listeners have got loads out of this. And we will definitely do. Well, this is kind of part 2. We'll definitely book in a part 3 and get that booked in.
I'm so up for it.
Yeah, pleasure. Thank you so much for your time, guys. Make sure you check out HAILO, HomeSearch. Giles, you can find Giles on LinkedIn. But yeah, check out HAILO for HomeSearch, and I'm sure you'll be very impressed with what they've got to offer. Thanks everyone for listening. Giles, thank you again, and we will see you next week.
And thanks for listening, everyone. Thank you. Have a good day.